The gathering storm, the circular chamber of the Galactic Assembly, floated in the void between star systems, a monument to cooperation among hundreds of worlds. Ambassador David Chen of Earth stood in the human delegation area, a small platform near the back of the massive hall. Around him, representatives from 53 different species occupied their designated spaces, each area designed to accommodate their unique physical requirements. The Krelith Dominion had become the central topic of every council meeting for the past 6 months. Their war fleet had conquered 17 star systems, enslaving populations and stripping worlds of resources. The reptilian Krelith showed no mercy, no interest in diplomacy, and no signs of stopping their expansion. Supreme Coordinator Thalen of the Aurorian Confederation called the session to order. His species resembled tall, elegant beings of pure energy contained within crystalline shells. His voice resonated through translation devices in every corner of the hall. We face an unprecedented crisis. The Krelith have destroyed the Valorum colony ships. Millions are dead or captured. We must respond with force. Murmurs filled the chamber. The Valorum were peaceful traders, a species that had never developed weapons beyond small arms for personal protection. They had been easy prey for the Krelith war machine. Commander Vralith of the Tarkonian Empire rose to speak. His species stood 9 feet tall with 4 arms and thick armored skin. The Tarkonian fleet numbers 400 warships. We pledge 200 vessels to this fight. Ambassador Syrinx of the Metherian Collective added her voice. Her jellyfish-like form floated in a tank of specialized fluid. The Metherian Defense Force will contribute 150 ships. Together we can field over 1,000 vessels. Other delegations announced their contributions. The insectoid Chitara offered 80 ships. The bird-like Avaskar pledged 60. Even smaller civilizations promised what they could, from 20 to 40 vessels each. David Chen raised his hand, activating his platform's attention signal. The indicator light drew eyes from across the chamber. Some delegates leaned forward with curiosity. Others barely glanced his way. Supreme Coordinator Thalen acknowledged him. The human delegation wishes to speak. David stepped forward, his voice clear and steady. Earth stands with the Assembly against the Krelith threat. We offer our full military support. We can deploy 8 warships immediately. Silence fell over the chamber for 3 seconds. Then laughter erupted from multiple delegations. The sound echoed off the curved walls, a chorus of alien voices expressing disbelief and amusement. Commander Vralith's deep voice boomed through his translator. 8 ships? We thought you said 800. Surely you misspoke, human. No mistake, David replied, keeping his composure. 8 ships. But they represent Earth's most advanced military technology. Ambassador Syrinx's tank rippled with what her species displayed as amusement. The Metherian Navy has individual capital ships larger than your entire contribution. How can 8 vessels make any difference in a war of this scale? A delegate from the Chitara hive cluster chirped rapidly, his translator converting the sounds to standard galactic speech. The humans have been spacefaring for barely 200 years. Most species here have explored the galaxy for thousands of years. This is no time for symbolic gestures. David felt anger rising in his chest, but he maintained his diplomatic mask. He had expected this reaction. Earth had warned him that the galaxy viewed humanity as newcomers, primitives who had only recently learned to build faster-than-light engines. Before he could respond, every screen in the chamber flickered and changed. The face that appeared made several delegates gasp in recognition. Overlord Drask of the Krelith Dominion stared out at the assembly with eyes like burning coals. His scaled face bore scars from countless battles, and his teeth were filed to sharp points. So the frightened prey animals gathered to discuss their fate. Drask's voice was like gravel grinding against metal. How touching. How utterly pointless. Supreme Coordinator Thalen tried to regain control. This is a closed session. How did you breach our security? Drask laughed, a harsh sound that made several delegates flinch. Your security is a joke, Coordinator. I've been listening to your pathetic plan since you opened this meeting. 1,000 ships? You think numbers will save you? My forces have crushed larger fleets. The Krelith Overlord's gaze swept across the various delegations before settling on the human platform. And what is this? The apes from Terra want to play at war. 8 ships? His laughter grew louder. I have patrol groups larger than your entire fleet. You will provide excellent entertainment for my gunners. Target practice for the newest recruits. David stepped closer to the camera pickup on his platform. Mock us all you want, Overlord. You'll find out soon enough what those 8 ships can do. Brave words from a species that barely knows how to leave its own planet, Drask sneered. I will personally oversee the destruction of your vessels. The galaxy will watch humanity die, and they will remember that defying the Krelith dominion means extinction. The screens went dark. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted at each other, some demanding stronger action, others questioning whether they should abandon the Valorum to their fate rather than risk war with the Krelith. Supreme Coordinator Thalen struggled to restore order. All pledged forces will rendezvous at the Sigma Tertia system in 72 hours. We will coordinate our attack from there. David Chen gathered his documents and prepared to leave. As he moved toward the exit, he heard fragments of conversations from nearby delegations. The Tarkonian military advisor was saying something about how 8 human ships wouldn't even register on battlefield sensors. A Matharian strategist suggested that Earth should focus on providing medical supplies instead of pretending to have military value. No one noticed Ambassador Chen's slight smile as he left the chamber. They would learn. Soon enough, they would all learn what it meant when humanity went to war. 3 star systems away, Admiral Victoria Cross stood on the bridge of the UEFS Valiant. At 52 years old, she had spent 30 years in Earth's military, rising from a fighter pilot to commander of humanity's most advanced warships. Her gray-streaked hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her dark eyes missed nothing as they scanned the bridge displays. The Valiant stretched 800 meters from bow to stern, but it was shaped unlike any vessel the galaxy had seen. Where alien warships were bulky and heavily armored, the Valiant was sleek and angular, designed to minimize sensor detection. Its hull was coated with materials that absorbed radar and electromagnetic scanning. Admiral, incoming transmission from Earth Command, reported Lieutenant Marcus Reed from the communications station. Victoria nodded. Put it through. The holographic display showed Admiral James Hartwell, Supreme Commander of Earth's United Defense Forces. His weathered face was serious. Victoria, you've heard about the assembly meeting? Yes, sir. Ambassador Chen briefed me. The usual reception for humanity's military capabilities. Hartwell allowed himself a grim smile. They'll change their tune soon enough. You're authorized to deploy all 8 ships to the Sigma Tertia system. Rules of engagement are clear. Protect innocent lives, eliminate Krelith forces, and show the galaxy what Earth's fleet can do. Understood, sir. What about coordination with the other species? Let them see what you can do first. Once they witness human technology in action, they'll be more receptive to following your tactical suggestions. Hartwell paused. Victoria, the Krelith have 400 warships. Intelligence suggests they'll commit at least 80 vessels to defend Sigma Tertius. Those are terrible odds. Victoria's expression didn't change. On paper, Admiral. Only on paper. Good hunting, Valiant. Earth is counting on you. The transmission ended. Victoria turned to her crew. Each station was manned by highly trained specialists, men and women who had volunteered for this mission knowing the risks. All stations, report status, she commanded. The responses came quickly. Weapon systems optimal, navigation ready, engineering at full power, defensive screens charged. Every system on the Valiant was functioning perfectly. Commander Thomas Park, her executive officer, stepped beside her. Admiral, the rest of the fleet is in formation and waiting for your signal. Victoria looked at the tactical display showing the other 7 ships. The UEFS Thunderhead commanded by Captain Sarah Kim. The UEFS Phantom under Captain Robert Zhang. The UEFS Lightning, Captain Jennifer Walsh. The UEFS Stormcrow, Captain Michael Foster. The UEFS Nightfall, Captain Lisa Anderson. The UEFS Tempest, Captain David Morrison. The UEFS Hurricane, Captain Amanda Torres. 8 ships, 8 captains. Each vessel represented the absolute pinnacle of human engineering and military innovation. They were smaller than most alien warships, but they carried technology that would shock the galaxy. All ships, this is Admiral Cross. Victoria spoke into the fleet-wide channel. You know our mission. The Krelith Dominion is slaughtering innocent people in the Sigma Tertia system. The galaxy thinks 8 ships can't make a difference. Let's prove them wrong. The responses came back immediately, each captain confirming readiness. Navigation plot jump coordinates for Sigma Tertius, Victoria ordered. All ships will jump simultaneously. I want us entering the system in perfect formation. Coordinates locked, Admiral, replied Lieutenant Sarah Martinez at navigation. Jump engines charging. We'll be ready in 5 minutes. Dr. Emma Wilson, the chief science officer, was studying her displays. Admiral, I'm detecting unusual energy signatures near the jump point. Someone's been monitoring our position. Krelith scouts? Most likely. They'll report our departure to Overlord Drask. Good, Victoria said calmly. Let them report. Let Drask know we're coming. The minutes ticked by as the jump engines built up the massive energy required to tear a hole through space-time. The process was still mysterious to many alien species, who had learned jump technology from ancient races. Humans had developed their own version through pure research and experimentation. Jump engines at full charge, Martinez reported. All ships confirm ready status. Victoria took a deep breath. Somewhere ahead in the Sigma Tertius system, innocent people were dying. The Krelith were conducting their usual pattern of conquest. Orbital bombardment of population centers, followed by ground forces capturing survivors for slavery. Every minute delayed meant more deaths. All ships execute jump on my mark, Victoria said. 3, 2, 1 mark, space twisted. Reality bent. The 8 human warships vanished from their position, leaving only fading energy signatures behind. In the Sigma Tertius system, the massacre was already underway. The Krelith fleet had arrived 3 hours earlier with 85 warships. They had immediately begun firing on the Valorum colonies scattered across 3 planets and 24 space stations. The Valorum had no military fleet, only civilian transports and mining vessels. They sent desperate pleas for help across every communication channel, begging someone, anyone, to save them. Overlord Drask watched the slaughter from his flagship, the Eternal Fury. The massive vessel was 2 kilometers long, bristling with hundreds of weapons. From his command throne, he could see dozens of screens showing different views of the attack. Status report, he commanded. General Carvex, his second-in-command, bowed. We've destroyed 63 orbital platforms. Ground forces have captured approximately 40,000 Valorum for processing. Resistance is minimal. Excellent. Continue bombardment of the major cities. I want this system completely pacified before the Assembly's pathetic fleet arrives. My lord, what about the humans? There are 8 ships? Drask's laugh echoed through the bridge. 8 human vessels against 85 Krelith warships? It will be over in seconds. In fact, I'm looking forward to it. Breaking the human spirit will send a message to the entire galaxy. Jump signatures detected, called out the sensor officer. Multiple contacts. They're human vessels, my lord. 8 ships just as reported. Battle stations, Drask ordered, though his voice carried amusement rather than concern. All ships maintain orbital bombardment. Detach the 7th Squadron to deal with these insects. 20 ships should be more than sufficient. On the bridge of the UF's Valiant, Victoria Cross saw the horror unfolding below. 3 Valorum planets were under attack. Cities were burning. Millions of people were dying. Her jaw clenched with controlled fury. Admiral, Krelith forces detected, reported Lieutenant Commander Jackson Hayes at Tactical. I count 85 enemy warships. They're spread across the system in bombardment formations. Any sign they've detected us? Victoria asked. Yes, ma'am. 20 vessels are breaking formation and heading our way. They're treating us like a minor inconvenience. Commander Park looked at the display showing the approaching enemy ships. Each one was larger than any human vessel, covered in weapons and thick armor plating. 20 against 8. They're not even sending their full force. Victoria's eyes narrowed. Their first mistake. Tactical, prepare to engage. Weapons free. Show them what happens when you underestimate humanity. The human fleet powered up its weapon systems. In the cold void of space, 8 small ships prepared to face 20 massive warships. The galaxy was about to learn a lesson it would never forget. The battle for Sigma Tertius was about to begin. When humanity answers, the 20 Krelith warships approached in a loose wedge formation, their hulls scarred from countless battles. Each vessel was over 1,500 meters long, dwarfing the human ships that waited silently in the darkness of space. On the bridge of the lead Krelith destroyer, Commander Zakthar watched his tactical display with bored confidence. Human vessels holding position, reported his sensor officer. They're not even attempting evasive maneuvers. Zakthar's scaled lips curled into what passed for a smile among his species. They're frozen with fear, probably realizing how foolish it was to challenge the Dominion. Charge all forward weapons. We'll vaporize them in the first volley. Aboard the UEF's Valiant, Admiral Victoria Cross watched the enemy approach with calm calculation. Her crew was silent, focused, waiting for her command. The bridge hummed with barely contained energy as every system prepared for combat. "Distance to enemy fleet?" Victoria asked. 40,000 kilometers and closing," Lieutenant Commander Hayes responded from tactical. "They're charging plasma cannons. Energy signatures are massive." Dr. Emma Wilson studied her science displays. "Admiral, their scanning is crude. They're using basic electromagnetic sensors. They have no idea what they're actually facing." "Good. Let's keep it that way a bit longer." Victoria opened a channel to the fleet. "All ships maintain stealth protocols. Wait for my signal. Thunderhead and Phantom, you'll take the left flank. Lightning and Stormcrow, right flank. Nightfall, Tempest, Hurricane, you're with Valiant on center assault. Execute dispersal pattern Delta on my mark." 8 confirmations came back instantly. The human ships began to drift apart, their movement so subtle that the Krelith sensors barely registered the change. To the enemy, it looked like random fluctuation, not tactical repositioning. Commander Zakthar increased his ship's speed. "All vessels, fire on my command. Target the lead human ship. We'll make an example of it." The distance closed to 30,000 kilometers, 20,000, 15,000. The Krelith weapons reached optimal firing range. "Fire," Zakthar commanded. 20 Krelith warships unleashed their plasma cannons simultaneously. Brilliant streams of superheated energy lanced through space, converging on the position where the UEFS Valiant had been moments before. But the Valiant was no longer there. In the split second before the Krelith fired, all 8 human ships activated their revolutionary propulsion systems. They didn't just move. They practically teleported, accelerating at rates that would have crushed any biological crew under normal circumstances. Human inertial dampening technology was decades ahead of anything the galaxy had seen. The plasma bolts struck empty space, their energy dissipating harmlessly into the void. "What?" Zakthar stared at his display in confusion. "Where did they go?" "Scanning, Commander." His sensor officer's voice held an edge of panic. They're everywhere. They've split up and they're moving faster than our tracking systems can follow." Victoria allowed herself a small smile. "All ships engage. Show them what real warfare looks like." The UEFS Thunderhead, under Captain Sarah Kim's command, appeared above 3 Krelith destroyers. Its weapons weren't the massive plasma cannons the aliens expected. Instead, it launched a spread of 60 missiles, each one no larger than a human but packed with artificial intelligence and adaptive targeting systems. The Krelith point defense systems activated, trying to shoot down the incoming missiles. A few exploded in brilliant flashes, but the others began to move in patterns that defied physics as the aliens understood it. They weaved and spiraled, accelerated and decelerated randomly, synchronized their movements in ways that confused tracking systems. 43 missiles penetrated the Krelith defensive screens. They struck with precision, targeting weapon systems, shield generators, and engine cores. 3 Krelith destroyers shuddered as explosions rippled across their hulls. One lost power entirely, going dark and beginning to drift. The other 2 struggled to maintain formation as secondary explosions tore through their lower decks. "Impossible," Commander Zakthar screamed. "How are they doing this?" "All ships, focus fire. Concentrate on single targets." But focusing fire required hitting something first. The human ships moved like ghosts, appearing long enough to strike before vanishing from sensor range. Their stealth capabilities were beyond anything the Krelith had encountered. The UEFS Phantom, commanded by Captain Robert Zhang, lived up to its name. It flickered in and out of sensor detection, using a combination of advanced materials and electromagnetic bending to become nearly invisible. When it did reveal itself, it unleashed devastation before disappearing again. Captain Zhang watched his tactical display with satisfaction. "Weapons target their communication arrays. Let's make sure they can't coordinate." Lieutenant Maria Garcia at Weapons Control nodded. "Firing railguns." The railguns were another human innovation. Instead of energy weapons that could be deflected by shields, they accelerated solid projectiles to a significant fraction of light speed. The tungsten rounds struck with kinetic energy that shields weren't designed to stop. 3 Krelith ships lost their communication towers in explosive decompression. Suddenly isolated from their squadron, Their captains had to make independent decisions, something Krelith military doctrine didn't prepare them for. Commander Zakthar tried to rally his forces. All ships, defensive formation, protect each other's flanks. It was good tactical thinking, but it came too late. The human ships had already fractured the Krelith formation. Now they exploited every opening. The UEFS Lightning, under Captain Jennifer Walsh, specialized in electronic warfare. As it swept past a cluster of 4 Krelith vessels, it released a pulse of specialized radiation that scrambled their targeting computers. The enemy ships suddenly found their weapons pointing at each other instead of at human targets. "Admiral Cross, this is Lightning," Captain Walsh reported. 4 enemy vessels temporarily disabled. Recommend nightfall move in for the kill." "Confirmed, Lightning," Victoria responded. "Nightfall, you're cleared for attack run." Captain Lisa Anderson of the UEFS Nightfall brought her ship into position with expert precision. Unlike the other vessels, Nightfall carried a prototype weapon that Earth scientists had been developing for 5 years, a focused graviton beam that could tear apart molecular bonds. "Firing graviton cannon," Captain Anderson announced calmly. A beam of invisible energy lanced out from Nightfall's main weapon port. It struck the lead Krelith destroyer amidships. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the destroyer's hull began to ripple and warp. Metal twisted. Bulkheads collapsed. In 15 seconds, the massive warship simply came apart, breaking into thousands of fragments that drifted away in all directions. The Krelith crews on nearby ships watched in horror as their companion vessel disintegrated. Nothing in their experience prepared them for this. Shields didn't matter. Armor didn't matter. The weapon simply unmade the target at a fundamental level. Panic began to spread through the Krelith squadron. These weren't the easy targets they'd expected. These small human ships fought with technology and tactics that made the Krelith fleet look primitive by comparison. "Retreat." Commander Zakthar finally gave the order he'd never imagined he'd need to give. "All ships, fall back to the main fleet." But retreating from human ships proved nearly impossible. The UEFS Stormcrow and Hurricane had positioned themselves behind the Krelith formation, cutting off their escape route. The 2 human vessels unleashed a coordinated barrage that crippled 3 more enemy destroyers. Victoria watched the battle unfold on her tactical display. In less than 8 minutes, the human fleet had destroyed or disabled 13 of the 20 Krelith ships. The remaining 7 were damaged and fleeing in disarray. 0 human casualties. Minimal damage to her vessels. "Valiant to all ships," Victoria transmitted. "Don't pursue, let them run. We have more important work to do." She turned her attention to the planets below, where Krelith forces were still bombarding civilian populations. "Tactical, I want targeting solutions on every Krelith ship in orbital bombardment position. Science, identify the prison transports holding Valorum captives." Dr. Wilson worked quickly. "I've located 6 transport vessels in low orbit around the second planet. They're loading captives from the surface. Energy signatures suggest they're holding between 30 and 50,000 Valorum prisoners total." "Those are our priority targets," Victoria decided. "We rescue those people first. Commander Park, coordinate with the other captains. I want boarding teams ready to secure those transports." "Yes, Admiral." The UEFS Valiant accelerated toward the second planet, the rest of the fleet following in perfect formation. Below them, 65 Krelith warships continued their assault on helpless cities, unaware that their small detachment had been obliterated. Aboard the Eternal Fury, Overlord Drask finally received the news. General Carvex approached his command throne with obvious reluctance. "My lord, the 7th Squadron has been defeated." Drask's head snapped around, his eyes burning. "Defeated? 20 ships defeated by 8? 13 destroyed, 7 severely damaged. The humans used weapons and tactics we've never encountered. Their technology is far more advanced than our intelligence suggested." For the first time in years, Drask felt something he barely recognized. Uncertainty. "Show me the battle recordings." The holographic display showed the engagement from multiple angles. Drask watched human ships move with impossible speed and precision. He saw Krelith destroyers torn apart by weapons that seemed to ignore physical laws. He watched his experienced, Commanders outmaneuvered and outfought by vessels a fraction of their size. "This changes nothing," Drask growled, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. "We still have 65 ships, they have 8. Send all bombardment squadrons to engage the human fleet. Crush them with overwhelming force." But even as he gave the order, the human fleet struck. The UEFS Valiant and her sister ships dropped into low orbit around the second planet. Their first targets were the prison transports. Captain Michael Foster of the Stormcrow brought his ship alongside the largest transport vessel. Boarding. Parties go. Specialized pods launched from the Stormcrow, each carrying a team of human marines in advanced combat armor. The pods attached to the transport's hull and cut through with plasma torches. Within seconds, human soldiers poured into the Krelith vessel. The fighting was brief and brutal. Human marines carried weapons designed for shipboard combat: compact rail rifles, plasma pistols, and monomolecular blades. Their armor incorporated sensor systems that let them see through walls and coordinate perfectly with their teammates. The Krelith guards aboard the transport were trained for intimidating helpless prisoners, not fighting professional soldiers with superior equipment. In less than 10 minutes, the Marines had secured the transport and freed 8,000 Valorum captives. Similar scenes played out across the other 5 prison transports. Human boarding teams moved with efficiency and precision, overwhelming Krelith security forces before they could mount effective resistance. Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Webb led the assault on the second-largest transport. His armor's display showed life signs for 12,000 Valorum prisoners crammed into cargo holds designed for freight. The conditions were horrific: minimal life support, no sanitation, many injured and sick. "Medical teams, get in here now," Webb ordered. "These people need immediate attention." Within the hour, all 6 transports were under human control. 53,000 Valorum prisoners had been freed. Human medical personnel began treating the wounded, while engineers worked to improve life support systems. But the battle was far from over. The Krelith bombardment squadrons had broken off their attacks on the planet's surface and were now converging on the human fleet. 65 warships against 8. The odds were terrible, but Victoria Cross had faced worse during the Mars Rebellion. "All ships, defensive formation Omega," Victoria commanded. "They want to use numbers against us. Let's show them why that won't work." The 8 human vessels arranged themselves in a 3-dimensional formation that maximized their overlapping fields of fire while minimizing their profile to enemy sensors. As the Krelith fleet approached, Victoria activated the one-weapon system she'd been holding in reserve. "Deploy the drone swarms," she ordered. From each human ship, thousands of small drones launched into space. They were tiny, each one no larger than a dinner plate. But they carried sophisticated sensors and weapons. The swarms formed defensive clouds around the human vessels, creating a barrier that no Krelith missile or fighter could penetrate. The Krelith fleet opened fire at maximum range. Plasma bolts and missiles filled space with deadly energy. But the drone swarms intercepted everything. Small explosions blossomed across the defensive perimeter as drones sacrificed themselves to protect the ships they guarded. For every drone destroyed, the human ships manufactured 2 more, maintaining the defensive screen indefinitely. Overlord. Drask watched in growing frustration as his fleet's weapons proved ineffective. "Close to point-blank range," he ordered. "Ram them if necessary. I want those ships destroyed." But closing with human vessels was exactly what Victoria wanted. At close range, human precision targeting and superior maneuverability became even more dominant. The UEF's Tempest, under Captain David Morrison, demonstrated this perfectly. As 3 Krelith cruisers moved in for close-range engagement, Tempest unleashed its full arsenal. Railgun rounds punched through enemy shields. Missiles struck with surgical precision. Laser arrays carved through armor plating like butter. In 90 seconds, all 3 Krelith cruisers were drifting wrecks, venting atmosphere and bodies into space. The pattern repeated across the battlefield. Human ships danced through the Krelith formation, striking and moving before enemy weapons could track them. The Krelith numerical advantage meant nothing when they couldn't hit their targets. After 20 minutes of brutal combat, Overlord Drask faced an unthinkable reality. His fleet had been reduced to 37 functional warships, The humans had lost 0 ships and taken only minor damage. His invasion force was being systematically destroyed by 8 vessels. "Retreat," Drask said quietly. Then louder. "All ships retreat. Jump out of the system immediately." The surviving Krelith warships broke formation and fled, activating their jump drives in ragged succession. Within minutes, the system was clear of enemy forces except for the disabled vessels and the captured transports. Victoria Cross allowed herself to relax slightly. "Casualty report. No human fatalities," Commander Park reported. 17 minor injuries across the fleet. All ships are operational. Drone reserves at 63%. And the Valorum? Dr. Wilson checked her displays. "We saved approximately 53,000 from the transports. Unfortunately, the bombardment killed an estimated 200,000 on the planet's surface before we could intervene. Medical teams are coordinating with surviving Valorum authorities to provide assistance." Victoria felt the weight of those deaths. 200,000 people who had died before humanity could save them, but 53,000 had been rescued, and the Krelith had learned that Earth was not defenseless. "Send a message to the Galactic Assembly," Victoria ordered. "Tell them the Sigma Tertius system is secure. Tell them humanity stands ready to defend innocent lives anywhere in the galaxy." Within hours, news of the battle spread across known space. On the crystal world of Voria Prime, High Chancellor Thalen watched the battle recordings 3 times in succession. 8 human ships had defeated over 80 Krelith vessels. Impossible, yet undeniably true. Commander Vralith of the Tarkonian Empire requested an immediate meeting with human military representatives. Ambassador Serix of the Matharian Collective formally apologized for underestimating Earth's capabilities. Species that had laughed at humanity's 8-ship contribution now begged for information about human technology and tactics. In the deep oceans of Aqua Prima, the Valorum elders sang songs of gratitude. The Sky Warriors from Terra had saved their people. 53,000 lives preserved, entire family lines saved from extinction. The Valorum would never forget. But in the throne room of the Krelith Dominion's capital world, Overlord Drask sat alone in the darkness, planning his revenge. The humans had humiliated him, destroyed his ships, freed his captives. Such an insult could not stand. "You've won this battle, humans," he whispered to the empty room. "But I have 300 ships remaining. I will crush your pathetic Earth and enslave your entire species. You will learn that defying the Krelith Dominion was the greatest mistake humanity ever made." Far across the galaxy, Admiral Victoria Cross stood on the observation deck of the Valiant, looking out at the stars. She knew this victory was just the beginning. The Krelith would come again in greater numbers with adapted tactics. The war was far from over, but humanity had shown the galaxy something important. 8 ships properly designed and expertly commanded could defeat forces 10 times their size. Earth was no longer the weak newcomer to be dismissed and mocked. Humanity had announced its presence to the cosmos with fire and steel, and the galaxy would never underestimate Earth again.